sort of leads into the next question I have, which is it's pretty clear that what they're trying to do with this law is to moot your case. But I'm interested in why they would want to do that at the point after the 3-judge panel sided with you, but before the en banc panel hears your case, when the en banc Ninth Circuit has basically ruled against gun rights litigants in every single circumstance, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they know that if the en banc court rules against me, that it is going to be a prime target for Supreme Court review. I mean, I think that's just what it boils down to. I mean, we've got 2 scenarios. Well, 3 scenarios. I mean, one, I get lucky and I get a favorable panel and I win from the en banc court. And that impacts a whole lot of stuff, right? I mean, that impacts every single AR-15 case in the country. Or B, I get a negative ruling, but because we're dealing with a knife ban, the Supreme Court's that gives the Supreme Court opportunity to rule on the hardware issue with something that's not nearly as controversial as, say, an AR-15 case. And
right.
Or C, it's this happened. They have to figure out a way to try and remove the case from the calendar. So, I mean, I think that that's what it boiled down to is they were really concerned about being the next Heller.
That's interesting. And it brings up a good point. I think most people might not understand about the federal circuits, right? Usually people think of an en banc panel as the entire court, but in the Ninth Circuit, it's not literally every judge. You still are drawing a panel, and the makeup of the Ninth Circuit, the way it's changed the last 5 to 10 years, it's not unthinkable to get a more conservative panel in an en banc. It hasn't seemed to have happened yet in a gun case, but it's not impossible. So there's some risk there.
But it has happened in the free speech context or a free exercise context. Just late last year, there was a case that was really surprising that dealt with the free exercise clause. And the en banc panel was majority conservative. And, so it is conceivable to happen.
So there's risk there, which might make them not want to take that jump. And then, of course, even if they got a favorable ruling, there's the risk that the Supreme Court could want to take that case, maybe over some of the other even more controversial cases, like you mentioned, the sort of AR-15 bans or what have you, might have a similar question at the core of it, but it's going to be a much bigger deal if they take an AR-15 case over a butterfly knife case, right?
Absolutely.
Maybe some of the strategic thinking going on. And so for you, that sounds a lot like Ren v. DC, if you remember that case from years ago.
Absolutely.
In the DC circuit, where Washington, DC had a ban on concealed carry. Then they put in a may issue law similar to what New York had in the Brewing case, but this was several years before. So the Supreme Court took that New York case, and DC lost at the lower level in the federal courts and decided not to appeal any further and just sort of bit the bullet and changed their law to be, to fall in line with what the judge had ruled, to try and avoid further legal fights. And so it sounds like maybe that's what's happened here. Hawaii's thinking, well, yeah, we'll have to pass this law that lets anybody carry a bladed weapon, but that's better than the potential outcome if we keep fighting.
I think something
from their point of view.
Yeah. This is a clear attempt to try and curb a bad precedent in another arena. And also, I think it's important to note that Hawaii doesn't exist in a vacuum, and there's a lot of other states that they're working with a national law firm, and I'm sure there's coordination that's occurring among the states.
Yeah, because isn't Neil Cattell was the has been a lawyer for them in some cases in the
Yeah, in
past,
this
right?
case, in the Teeter case,
Okay.
and
Yeah. So,
he's was my opposing counsel when young, and he's also I recently argued against him in a challenge to Hawaii's sensitive places law at the Ninth Circuit. So
so they're, that's not something that Hawaii is probably doing on their own. And I think hasn't every town has gotten involved with some of these cases as well directly.
absolutely, they've been involved as amicus, and they've in my magazine case, they've as they've sent their lawyers in to become deputy attorney generals
Right.
temporarily for the case, and
Yeah,
they've
which is not a super usual thing to happen, right?
yes, yeah, and
So, the gun control movement is pretty interested in what's going on with these cases in Hawaii for sure. And I think you can pretty well uh, infer that, the strategic thought behind this change in law.
yeah, no, absolutely, and it's I mean, there's definitely a national strategy going on, and that was made very clear in my sensitive places litigation. The if your readers or viewers don't know, there's sensitive places law I'm referring to are laws that prohibit the carry of handguns, even if you have a concealed carry permit, in the vast majority of the state of Hawaii. And what really struck me about it when I was preparing that lawsuit is, after the Bruin opinion, then after the Young opinion came down, which um, compelled everyone to start issuing permits, the 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 state of Hawaii passed a bill that banned carry in 95% of the state, and
Another sort of national trend that we've seen with,
yeah,
at least in these states affected by Bruin directly.
and the law is virtually identical to California's law, New York,
Mm-hmm.
New Jersey,
Yep.
and Maryland's law. I mean,
Yeah.
and the law they're trying to pass in Massachusetts, but to my knowledge, I don't think they've been successful with that. Kudos to
Not yet.
the groups over there. But the point is that you don't, half a dozen states don't pass identical laws without a national coordination.
Yeah, and not that that's totally unusual. I mean, you see this on the other side of the aisle as well. Permitless carry is a perfect example of a similar movement from the gun rights side of things. But yes, I think it's very well established at this point that there's a national effort to get very similar legislation passed in these states, and I think that it definitely that type of coordination certainly extends to what the gun control groups recommend different states do in response to some of these lawsuits as well.